What is up, everybody? Skratch coming up with another Raid Shadow Legends video. Welcome to the channel, everyone. Hope you guys are having an amazing day. We got some juicy news from Plarium. Champion Rebalance. Time to take these two bad boys out of the vault, or maybe not. We're gonna have a look to see what changes on these two particular champions, which I'm gonna name in just a second. Probably you've noticed on the thumbnail already. And of course, I just wanna let you know this weekend, we're gonna have a 2x on voids. Nothing else whatsoever. No guaranteed on voids. No guaranteed on anything. Seems like Plarium is kind of like trying to drop the guaranteed events. Something weird is happening in here. But let's quickly talk about the champions. So we're gonna start with one of my favorites. And this is actually a pretty interesting champion all around. And he was pretty interesting for quite a while back in the day for Arena. So, Suzerain Khatoon, he's finally getting the upgrade that he deserves. Now, he's an AoE champion, right? The main issue with him, he wasn't really doing a lot of damage all around, unfortunately. But he did have some utility before, which now at the moment, considering that we have the bolster set and stuff, this skill right here is not as reliable. Removes shield, block damage, and unkillable buffs from all enemies, then attacks them. Places a 100% heal reduction debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. The buff removal cannot be resisted, so you don't need accuracy to remove these debuffs from the opponents. And he has an attack aura for all battles. Generally, just looking at his stats, he actually has fairly decent stats. Almost 1.6k attack, 15k HP, 1k defense, 98 speed. The crit damage is basic, is not 63%, it's 57. We do have some accuracy and resistance on the champion. So basically, what's gonna change on him? So on this skill, at the moment, it seems like nothing. On this skill, Hex of Ears, damage will be increased. Now, we don't know by how much, unfortunately. So we're gonna have to wait and find out. If you're paying attention to the books right here, you're only getting 15% damage from books. So don't expect him to become the #1 Nuka in the game or anything like that. Now, a couple of other things are changing in here. So, attacks all enemies, has a 70% chance of placing a 25% weaken debuff for 2 turns, which will take him fully booked to a 100% chance to land weaken. Then, places a 60% defense down debuff for 2 turns if a weakened debuff is not placed. That changed. So the way it will work is also has a 45% chance of placing a defense down debuff for 2 turns. So basically, fully booked will be a 75% chance to land the defense down and a 100% chance to land the weaken, plus you're getting extra damage. Honestly, I feel like it would have been much better if they were making defense down 100% as well and leave the damage the way it is. Then this champion would have had more utility. You were going to be able to land guaranteed defense down and weaken. Of course, the 3% chance was still going to be there, but at least you would have had a 100% chance to land both of the debuffs. I'm not 100% sure if this will be enough to justify the champion now. Like, defense down, in my opinion, is more important than weaken. And not having a 100% chance on that particular debuff, I'm not sure how to feel about it. But still, it's gonna be better than he was before. Because you're gonna have at least a chance to land the defense down together with the weaken, you know. On the A3, so Banish from Time. This is on a 4-turn cooldown. And what's happening right here, it seems like damage increased. Nothing else whatsoever. So he's gonna get more damage on the A2 and A3. He's gonna be able to land weaken and defense down. And nothing else changes on Suzerain Khatoon. Is this enough for you guys to unvault the champion and start using him? Probably for Faction Wars, I'm definitely gonna consider to use him. Because at the moment, that's the one thing that I'm lacking on this faction, is to have a defense down champion. Of course, I could use a different one, but we're gonna see if I'm gonna get to use him, for example, instead of a different champion from that faction, you know. Attack aura for all battles. Very curious to see how this turns out. I know a lot of people pull the Suzerain Cartoon and you haven't been able to do much with him. The next good thing is that, considering that he's gonna have 3 AoEs, he's gonna be better for campaign farming. He might become a pretty good campaign farmer for Nightmare, you know, depending on the damage. Now, the affinity is another thing to keep in mind, but I guess we're gonna have to find out. I feel like you're gonna get quite a few magic champions on stage 6 if you're planning to farm that, you know. The next champion, funny enough, is from the same faction. I don't have to go far away. Is gonna be no one else but Elegias. Now, this is a pass fusion, and he seemed interesting at the beginning, but honestly, he's just not really providing anything. And I feel like he definitely needs quite a bit of a rework, man. And the stats on the champion are pretty good. On a shield set, he's nice for faction wars to help you with the Valk waves and stuff like this. Basically, with the A1, has a chance to land the block active skills. With the A2, attacks one enemy, puts the target skills on cooldown. This is on a 3-turn cooldown. If they're dupes of the same champion, he's gonna put the cooldowns for all of them, you know, he's gonna increase the cooldowns for all of them. The A3 attacks all enemies, fully booked 100% chance of removing 2 random buffs, and has a 100% chance of decreasing all enemies' turn meter by 20%. Decreases the turn meter by a further 0.2 for every 1% of the HP this champion loses, you know. And the passive prevents this champion's death and keeps them alive on 1 HP when hit by a fatal hit. If this skill prevents this champion's death, heals them by 10% of their max HP, fills their turn meter by 20%, and places a shield buff on them equal to 30% of their max HP for 2 turns. Will not prevent this champion's death if they are under a heal reduction debuff. This is on a 5-turn cooldown fully booked. So, what exactly changes on Elegias? That stop, which is the A2, now after the buff, will attack one enemy, puts the target skills on cooldown, also places a block buffs debuff for 2 turns. If the enemy team has any duplicates of the target champion, will also put all of their skills on cooldown and places a block buff debuff on them for 2 turns. So basically, he's gonna get block buffs on a single enemy, or if they're dupes, he's gonna do it on those champions as well. I don't think it's necessarily the biggest change on him. Like, if I'm gonna lock their skills, block buffs won't be as helpful for the Valkyrie waves, for example. Yes, Warcaster won't be able to put block damage on the Valkyries as an idea for taking in consideration faction wars. So I'm not 100% sure how to feel about it. I don't think it's gonna be a game-changing improvement whatsoever. Then, Ghost Rage, which is this skill right here. What's gonna change on it is the following. Attacks all enemies, 100% chance fully booked of removing 2 random buffs, also 100% chance of decreasing all enemies' turn meter by 20%, and decreases enemies' turn meter by a further 10% for each removed buff, which is definitely much better. So if you get to remove 2 buffs from the enemies, you're gonna drop their turn meter by a further 20%. Which, yeah, it does sounds pretty interesting all around. If you're putting block buffs with the A2, they might not have any buffs to remove after. So that's kind of like they're hitting head in the head. I'm kind of like trying to make sense out of everything. Then you have the passive, okay? Spurned by Death passive. So the cooldown is gonna get decreased by 1 turn. So when it's fully booked, it's gonna go down to a 4-turn cooldown instead of 5, and prevents this champion's death and keeps them alive on a 1 HP when hit by a fatal hit. If the skill prevents this champion's death, heals them by 30% of their max HP, so a 20% extra from the previous stats, fills the turn meter by 30%, and places a shield buff on them equal to 30% of their max HP, which didn't change at all. Then he's gonna get an aura, increases ally accuracy in all battles by 60. So what do I think about this change on Elegias? He's gonna be more annoying on the Doom Tower waves because of the passive. You're gonna be able to play him a bit better in Faction Wars, especially on the last stage where most of the people are struggling. The boss does ignore defense and he's one-shotting most of the champions or two-shotting them. So you would be able to make the boss to target Elegaius. The passive is gonna keep him alive. Then he's gonna get enough HP and shield to basically take another hit or two from the boss, which is definitely gonna be pretty interesting. This is pretty much everything in terms of changes. Of course, you're gonna get the accuracy aura, which can help you if you are struggling with that. It might be a bit more useful on Doom Tower waves, where you have a lot of Siphis, a lot of Rotoses, a lot of different champions that are pretty hard to handle, you know? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, guys. Are you excited for any of these champion buffs on these two particular champions? This is it for the moment. We don't have any other champions on the list. But yeah, that was pretty much all. Appreciate all of you guys watching, and I'll catch you all soon in the next video. Peace.